welcome or welcome back to the Marketing Nomad YouTube channel. Today we're doing a tarot deck review, and the deck that I have for you is the Broadway Tarot by Ella Witchell. Now this particular deck was kindly gifted to me by Smith Street Books, and I just wanted to say thank you so much for sending this deck over for me to review. Now before I shift the camera angle and we get into the actual review, let's talk a little bit about what you can expect in today's video. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing my initial thoughts as I started to use this deck. I'm also going to be sharing my experience with tapping into the energy of this particular deck, and I'm also going to be sharing some tips and tricks that have helped me as I connected with this particular deck. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the front, I'm also going to be reading the back, and then we will shift the camera angles and get into the review part of this video. So this is by Ella Witchell, Broadway Tarot, See Your Future Up in Lights. Alright, and then on the back of the deck, it says, your destiny is waiting in the wings. Gaze into your future with this theatrical 78 card tarot deck and guidebook featuring your favorite Broadway musicals. And hey, if your future, as ordained by these cards, isn't looking so bright, just remember that there is nothing in life that you can't sing your way out of. Beautiful. Now shuffle the deck and break a leg. This is by Smith Street Books. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to shift the camera angle and show you more details about this particular deck. I'm also going to be showing you the illustrations on each of the particular cards. We're also going to be getting into my thoughts and the review for this particular deck. Alrighty, give me a few seconds. So this is how the box looks. There are 78 cards in the Broadway Tarot. I absolutely loved this particular deck. I mean, it is so playful, it is so clever, and it is also very, very insightful as a deck. Now for me, I think that Ella Witchell has done a fantastic job to celebrate iconic Broadway musicals, and I really love how she's reimagined it all through the lens of tarot. It's a very, very witty deck. It's also, like I mentioned before, very playful. It is very, very sharp with the messages coming through. Now, when I first received this deck, I was a little bit worried because as much as I am familiar with quite a few Broadway musicals, I was afraid that maybe I would not be able to know all of them. And that's the thing that I loved about this deck. You know, even if there are certain Broadway musicals that you might not be familiar with, you can always just go online, research it, kind of look into the storyline of it, and use that information to kind of tap into the messages of the cards that come out. Not just that, even by the title of the Broadway musicals, there's already so much of information that comes through. Not to forget, even the imagery aligns so well with the RWS meanings of that particular card. So in a way, even if you are, not that familiar with Broadway musicals and probably you want to expand your understanding of them, you want to, probably look deeper into the musicals, you want to become familiar with them, I would recommend this particular deck. I think it's been about 6 weeks of me using this deck. I've been using it for personal readings, client readings. I've also been using it for collective readings as well. And I find that every single time there's more and more information that comes through, even if I'm picking the same card. And I really have to credit Ella Witchell for that. Her kind of illustrations of each of the cards, they are just so beautiful, and there's kind of this soft aesthetic to it, which really flows as you are reading it as well. Now, the images on the cards, they don't really have facial expressions, but I think that that actually adds to the experience of reading this particular deck. Overall, I find that the deck by itself is very, very thoughtful in terms of its correlation to the RWS meanings of each of the cards. And I have enjoyed the process of getting to know some of the musicals that I was not familiar with before. And for me, what I do is I go, if I'm not familiar with a musical, that is, I go in, I take a look at what the musical is about. I read about the story behind it. I read about the characters. I also read about the actors that are going to be performing or that have performed for that musical. And so for me, that adds so many different layers, and I'm always surprised by what comes through when I'm reading with this particular tarot deck. Like sometimes the storyline comes through, sometimes some information about the actor comes through, some information about the character comes through. There are so many different layers that you can actually pick apart with every single card that you pick in this particular deck. And given that the aesthetic is very, very uniform, even though there are such dramatically different musicals that come through, I think that it gives a very cohesive reading, even if you have multiple cards in a spread. So that is something that I really, really liked with this particular deck. And for me, the moment I opened the deck and I started looking at the names of the musicals, most of them were quite familiar to me. I mean, I have heard of them. I've not seen them, but I have, seen reviews of them. And so it was even that familiarity that was coming through that, okay, well, I've heard of this. I know what this is about. And so even there, that excitement was definitely there as I was tapping into this card's energy. So if you are kind of deeply into Broadway and Broadway musicals, yeah, I would highly, highly recommend this particular deck. In terms of the energy of the deck, you get the connection right off the bat. Like even if you aren't that familiar with Broadway musicals, you would have heard of it. You would have seen it maybe on social media or on the internet, maybe in the news as well, in the entertainment section. So there is that layer of familiarity that comes through right off the bat. And sometimes you might even have read the book version of it. So all of that, forms your connection with the deck. And I have enjoyed understanding this deck through connection. All right. And for me, even if I didn't know what the musical was about, I think that the emotional essence is there. Like I said, I think that Ella Witchell has done such a great job with respect to the design, the illustration, that the cards speak for themselves. And there is an element where I feel the cards actually make you think. And if you are into creative journaling, I would highly recommend this particular deck. If you want a more theatrical or a very, very fresh perspective to what you're going through or the questions that you're asking about different aspects of your life, again, I would recommend this particular deck. The imagery, there is a certain lightness that comes through even for your heavy questions. And I feel that sometimes we're not in the mental space to get heavy answers. We would like answers to heavy questions, but in a way that makes us feel light. And I feel that this particular deck does it. That was a very delicate balance that it does, and it doesn't lose depth to the messages that come through. That was one key understanding that I had with this particular deck. And given that it is, kind of a homage to Broadway musicals, I think that it encourages you to look at life through a more creative and expressive lens. So overall, I felt that this deck was alive in the sense, because it wants to perform. Like even as I was putting the cards on the table and I was trying to read it or I was trying to tap into the energy, I felt the cards wanting to come out. Like they wanted to show me who they were and they wanted to talk to me, So that was the energy that I kind of tapped into as I was looking into the deck. So if you are, maybe a theater lover, if you are a performer yourself, if you are a creative, and I am, by the way, I am a highly, highly creative person. So for me, I have enjoyed tapping into the abundance of creative energy that is, completely filled in this particular deck. So if you are a creative as well, I would highly, highly recommend this deck. And if you are someone who enjoys a little bit of drama, a little bit of color, yes, absolutely, I would recommend this deck. I mean, what is life without a little bit of drama? And I think that this deck adds that flair. And like I said, I think you can make out even my voice. I'm smiling as I'm saying this. This is a very, very uplifting deck, a very happy deck, but at the same time, it lets you know where you could be lacking, what information you need. And it doesn't hide away from the heavy stuff, but it adds a certain lightness to the heavy stuff. So if you are looking for a deck to help you with maybe songwriting, your theatrical projects, or even storytelling, I would recommend this deck. If you're using this for maybe self-expression, again, I would highly recommend this deck because there is so much of creative energy that you can tap into this deck, all right? Overall, I would say that this is a very, very witty deck, a very playful deck, and it gives you the information that you need from a very creative and expressive perspective. All right. I really hope that this review helped you get a good starting point to see if this deck aligns with your needs at this point in time. Thank you so much for listening all the way up until here. And yeah, I'll catch you in my next one. Bye-bye.